Thomas the Tank Engine. Liam Fitzgerald asks, how long have you been a Thomas and Friends fan?
I've been a fan of Thomas the Tank Engine since I was a baby, and when my parents got me my first video, Trust Thomas and Other Stories. And I've been a fan of it ever since.
TCW22 Genesis Prague asks, favorite engine from TTTE or Railway series?
Well, since I was a child, my favourite character from the TV series has always been Gordon. And I don't really know why I liked him, I just did. These days, looking back, I think it was probably something to do with the fact that he's the same design as Flying Scotsman, and he was blue, and blue's my favourite colour. And I guess I just loved the bigger engines in Thomas. As for the Railway series, I really loved Flying Scotsman in it, for obvious reasons. So, yeah, Gordon and Flying Scotsman.
KingFan701 asks, if you were to be like a Railway series or TV Thomas character as an engine, who would it be based off?
Well, if I was to be a Thomas character from the TV series or the Railway series, I'd say that I'd like to either be based on Flying Scotsman or Mallard, since he appeared in one of the books. So either one of those would suit me.
Jockey139 and Toyer Toys both asked, what's your favorite season or series of Thomas?
This is one I've often talked about in previous Q&A videos, but my top 3 Thomas series is Series 1 and Series 2 because of the narrations by Ringo Starr and the stories they've chosen from the Railway series. And I especially love in Series 2 how the show got darker with more crashes and mishaps. And I also really, really love Series 5 because that's the darkest series I've ever seen of Thomas. Like, dark storyline-wise, not Sharon Miller era dark. Because the stories just push the boundaries of the past series before Series 5. And it's just got so many amazing stories and kick-ass crash scenes. So yeah, those are my 3 favourites.
Liam Fitzgerald also asks, do you like Season 20?
Yes I did. I thought it was really enjoyable, and the writing was top-notch compared to various other seasons in the CGI era. Of course, they're not really up there with the original model series from Series 1 to 7, but they're decent enough to watch, and it's obvious that the writers loved Thomas the Tank Engine and the Railway series, especially since they put episodes from the Railway series in there again for the first time since Series 4. So, Series 20, great series.
Jelly Toy Productions Official asks, what are your favorite episodes from Season 20 of Thomas and Friends?
I'd have to say some of my favourite episodes from Series 20 would be the ones with Daisy and Ryan in it, because we got to have a proper return for Daisy since Sodor's Legend of the Lost Treasure, and we got to expand a bit more on the relationship between her and Ryan. I also loved Pouty James, because it was just a really funny James story. But my most favourite episodes from Series 20 are the ones with the small railway engines, which were Tit for Tat, Mike's Whistle, and Really Useful Railway. Because as I said before, that was the first time in years that we've had a Railway series stories put into the TV series. And I love how Andrew Brenner just made his own alterations to the stories to fit it in with the TV series. And I thought it was just amazing that they put in the Reverend Wilbert Audrey, aka the Thin Clergyman, and the Fat Clergyman in the story. It was just really amazing that they were able to do that.
GrowFan01 asks, out of King of the Railway and Sodor's Legend of the Lost Treasure, which one do you think is the best and why?
As I said in a previous question, my favourite specials are The Adventure Begins and Sodor's Legend of the Lost Treasure. Because those are the 2 that I look forward to the most every time I want to rewatch a Thomas special. So yeah, Adventure Begins and Legends of the Lost Treasure, my 2 favourites.
Toyer Toys also asks, what is your #1 favorite Thomas the Tank Engine and Friends episode and movie?
Well, I've got so many favourite Thomas and Friends episodes, and I did list them out in previous Q&A videos, and you can see them in the description below if you want to get a reminder of my favourite episodes. The links for the previous Q&A videos are in the description below. And My favourite movie, or, well, favourite movies from Thomas are The Adventure Begins, because it was a great retelling of the first few stories from the Railways series. And I also loved Sodor's Legend of the Lost Treasure the most out of the newest ones, because it was just greatly written, and I loved the late Sir John Hurt as Sailor John. It was just a great movie. In fact, looking back at it now, I'd say it's even better than The Great Waste story-wise. So, yeah, episodes in descriptions below, and favourite movies, The Adventure Begins and Sodor's Legend of the Lost Treasure.
Stewing Shin asks, what are your favorite music scores from Thomas episodes?
If I'm completely honest, I like all of the music from the Thomas episodes from back in the day when Mike O'Donnell and Junior Campbell were doing their scores. I mean, the music scores that they did for the show were just top notch. They just matched every single scene that they were recorded for. Like the runaway crash chase scenes, and even just those beautiful ambient music that played in the background during the railway's working business. Their music was just top notch, and it's really sad that they're not composing music for the show anymore. But I do really love that they're every now and then bringing some of their classic themes back to the new series. So I like all their music.
Liam Fitzgerald asks, what are your top 5 least favorite Thomas and Friends episodes?
Well, least favourite episodes would honestly have to come from series 8 to 16. And I know that's cheating here since that's more than 5, but there's just so many bad episodes in it that I could just go on forever about how bad they are, but everyone's already talked about how bad these episodes are. So there's nothing else I can add to it because everybody's pointed out every single thing that's wrong with those episodes. So sorry I couldn't answer your question properly, but there's just too many to list.
Cream Productions 27 asks, who is your favorite voice actor from Thomas and Friends?
Favourite actor from Thomas and Friends, Teresa Gallagher, because she voices the majority of the female characters in the show. And you would have probably heard her voice in a lot of children's TV shows, including The Amazing World of Gumball. I mean, every voice she does for every character she voices just suits the characters really well. Like, I loved her cute little girl voice she did for Rosie back in the day. And I love the voice she gave Mavis. But I really love her Scottish accent she put on for Emily. I think that's the best voice she's done in the show.
Joseph Maris asks, do you prefer John Bella's voice for Thomas or Eddie Glenn's voice for Thomas?
That's a very good question. But because I've only heard snippets of John Bellis's voice in the trailers and saw loads of Eddie Glenn in the final project, it's kind of hard for me to decide. But if they ever did attempt to release the director's cut on DVD and Blu-ray, then I would definitely buy it and watch it and then compare their voices. But I think John Bellis sounded really good for Thomas from what I've seen in the trailer. So because John Bellis' voice is British and he's British, I probably would have liked him better.
Kevin Devaney asks, if you had to choose, which US narrator of Thomas the Tank Engine would you prefer the most? George Carlin or Alec Baldwin?
Out of George Carlin and Alec Baldwin, I definitely have to go with George Carlin because he puts more effort into his narration compared to Alec Baldwin. So definitely would go with George Carlin.
Mike D57S asks, in the Andrew Brenner era, do you have any favorite new characters?
It's a very good question. If I had to pick Andrew Brenner era characters, I really like Ashima from The Great Race, because she's one of those adorable characters and another racial origins character from India, and I especially love the fact that they got an Indian actress to voice her. It's kind of hard to decide which other characters from the Andrew Brenner era I like, because there's so many that I just have to think a lot about it before I actually decide. But one I really love, as well as Ashima, is Sailor John, even though he was just a one-time character. Because he was just a nasty, diabolical villain. And I love characters like that. And the late John Hurt did a great performance as him. And I'm not sure if it was just a coincidence that they picked John Hurt to voice the character named John, or if they just did it because he was named John. So yeah, Shima and Sailor John I love the most.
Joseph Marison asks, do you prefer Frank Breen's voice for Splatter and Dodge, or Neil Crone and Kevin Frank's voices for the both of them?
Like with John Bellis' Thomas voice, I would love to see Patrick Breen's voice for Splatter and Dodge in the director's cut to get a comparison for their voices. But I really love Neil Crone and Kevin Frank's work from each other. Like, they're practically comedy duos. So I love their voices, but I would love to hear Patrick Breen's voices for the two to compare them and see which one's the best.
Joseph Marison also asks, do you prefer Keith Scott's voice for Diesel 10 or Neil Crone's voice for Diesel 10?
Even though I really love Neil Crone's comedic performance as Diesel 10, I think it would be really nice to see two versions of the director's cut to see what Neil Crone's Russian accent would have been like and what Keith Scott's voice would have been like. But from the trailers, I think Keith Scott really suited the part of Diesel 10 because of how diabolical the villain was intended to be rather than not too comical. So I'd love to hear both those original voices and compare them. But at the moment I love Neil Crone's performance.
Donkey Kong Brawl Smash asks, are you excited for Journey Beyond Sodor? And what excites you the most?
Yes I am. Very excited for Journey Beyond Sodor. And I know you're going to say this one's obvious, but one thing that excites me the most is seeing Rosie again. And I know a lot of you are getting fed up with me doing that, the whole Rosie thing, but I just love the idea that Rosie's going to have a part in this special. Whether it's just a small part, I really don't care. It'd just be nice to see her and hear her talk again.
Dylan May asks, what are your top 10 favorite Thomas characters?
In no particular order, James, Gordon, Stepney, Duncan, Bill and Ben, Diesel 10, John Hurt, Rex, Sailor John, Rex, Bert, and Mike.
Dylan D57S also asks, who is your favorite Andrew Brenner Who is your favorite Andrew Brenner depiction of a classic Thomas character in regards of the portrayal and currently?
I honestly love Andrew Brenner's depiction of the classic Thomas characters. Though one thing I'm not too fond of these days is Henry being sort of a nervous wreck. I mean, I can understand it for certain episodes, but do they really have to use it for most of the episodes? And even though I don't have much of a problem with it, I think they could do Henry being a worry worm a little bit less more these days. Excuse me. But I think he does a really good job at keeping the characters as the characters we know.
JamieBoy95 asks, what are your all-time favorite Thomas the Tank Engine episodes?
For favourite Thomas episodes, as I mentioned before, I've talked about them in the first Q&A video I've done. And if you want to hear those, then you can click on the description below for the first Q&A video to hear my favourite episodes.
Gramafano1 also asks, what was your favourite moment from Tale of the Brave?
Most favourite moment from Tale of the Brave, I'd have to say would be the song Monsters Are Everywhere. Because the first time I watched that immediately put me in mind of the Pink Elephants from Dumbo and Heffalumps and Woozles from the Many Adventures of Winnie the Pooh.
Mike D57S also asks, who were your favourite Thomas voice actors?
Favourite Thomas voice actors, I've mentioned in a question before, but my most favourite is Teresa Gallagher because of her range of voices, especially her voice for Emily. She's just a great actress.